Today we'll start with chapter number 2, that is Rise of Nationalism and Foundation of Indian National Congress. Before we go to this chapter, I want you to hold this video and please go to chapter number 1. Okay? I want you to go through all the events which took place in the 1857 First War of Independence. I also want you to stress more on the causes for the revolt of 1857. Why so is because we will be using those words over here. Not all but few. We will be using more. Okay. Let's continue with this chapter. Now this chapter is divided into two parts, that is the rise of nationalism and foundation of the Indian National Congress. So we will be studying it same way, part number 1 and part number 2. So let's go to that part, but before let us try to understand what happened in India. Okay, Indians did not win their war against British in 1857, but British, when they stayed in India, their life in India was not of ease. They had to face lots and lots of problems. Okay, there are some examples which have been given on your textbook, which I am referring over here. Okay. If you go to page number 13, you will find these examples. Okay, so there are 3 examples which are given. One is indigo disturbance which held in Bengal area. Okay, mostly those were the farmers which grew indigo. Okay, then we have the tribals of Jharkhand, that is Santhal tribes, which had also their protests against British. Okay, but these were localized protests. Okay, same way in Punjab, the Sikhs of Punjab had a movement called as the Kuka movement. Okay, this was somewhat like a predecessor of Mahatma Gandhi's process. Okay, Mahatma Gandhi was known for boycotting, okay, of British goods. Same way, Kuka movement also saw the same thing. The people, the Sikh people, boycotted British railway, British post, and they also had parallel government which took place in the certain areas. But these 3 examples which I speak, it is all localized struggles which they had. Okay. Now Indians realize that since they have localized struggle, it is not having much effect on the British. So what they did, they felt like they should go for something called as a rise of nationalism. They should put the spirit of nationalism throughout the Indians. Okay. Now, before I go on, I want you to hold this video. Okay. And I want you to write down whatever comes in your mind. What is the definition of the word nationalism? I repeat, please write down the definition of the word nationalism. Once you have done that, let's go to the definition given of nationalism in your textbook. Okay, there are 3 parts which have been given in your textbook in one paragraph directly. I want you to mark all those 3 parts. All are important. Okay, now this first point and this last point, it tells about a short definition of what we call nationalism. It is more like oneness. Okay, people coming together for common cause. Okay, or it is something like a strong sentiment of evoking a collective consciousness of fellowship, or what we call brotherhood, okay, or fraternity. Now, when speak about the proper definition is point number 2, which is given over here. Okay, it is something to do with a nation, a fraternity of the people of one nation, based on political, historical, religious, linguistic, racial, cultural, psychological, and other factors. Okay, in which this means that all people feel that okay, they belong to certain society which they have these things and many other things common. Okay, that is what we call nationalism. Now let us go forward. Let us try to understand why there was growth of nationalism. Okay, on your textbook there are many factors. The causes why there was growth of nationalism is given. But what I have done for my convenience, for your convenience, I have grouped them into certain categories. Okay, it is not in your textbook. Okay, the grouping you can write it as what I have done over here, or you can do your own groupings as per your likings, or you can just go through the concept, try to understand those concepts. Okay, I'm giving you the freedom. Okay, now let's go to the first factor, the first group, that is the economic factor. Okay, before I move, do you remember the economic factors which led to the 1857 struggle? Please try to remember that, okay, because it is somewhat similar over here. Okay, so when you speak about economic factor, in your textbook it has been given like economic exploitation, impoverishment of peasants, industrial stagnation, and British apathy of famines. Okay, I will go to the last part last, but I will explain this first three together. Okay, when British came to India, they did not come as liberators, they came as a traders, and their main focus was to get as much money as possible from India. They converted India, which was one of the biggest producing country, to a country which would just give the raw materials to the British, and British, they would just produce materials from that raw material and send it back to India for sale. Okay, so economic exploitation, Indian companies, Indian industries, cottage industries, craft industry, they all have gone down. British did nothing. Okay, even when it comes to peasants, British have made them converted from food grain producing farmers to something called as the plantation farmers, mostly the workers. Okay, even when I speak about before British, the tax system which was there in India, it was all controlled by the government. The central government used to tell how much tax a landlord would put on his farmers. Okay, and that was amount was quite small. Even the landholder was not a permanent landholder. Okay, it was for certain time. Probably for certain generation a person could hold the land. Okay, when British came to India, this landholders process, or zamindari process, became hereditary, and the amount of tax which the person could put on his farmer was not fixed. So the landlords used to put more tax on the peasants, and they gave nothing in return to the peasants, no help. Okay, so the peasants went down. Same way when I speak about industrial stagnation, I'll also go back to the first part. British came over here just to earn profit. Okay, so what happened is that Indian craft, Indian cottage industry all went down because of British policy. Okay, if you remember 8th standard, you had one word called as one-way free trade. Please try to remember that. Okay, so this can be applicable over here. Okay, so now Indian industries went down. The British industry used to just dump their luggage over here. So India was all stagnant. Industries had gone down. All the material which they were getting was from outside. Okay, now let us talk about something called as British apathy of famines. Okay, famines means people do not get proper supply of food. They don't get grains to eat. Okay, that's how people die of hunger. They suffer a lot because of hunger. Now there are many factors which lead to famines. Majority of time it is the natural factors like droughts, floods, insects, infection, all those things factors are there. Okay, like let's just 6 few examples over here which we have. Okay, in 1866 in modern day Odisha area there was famine, lakhs of people died. Okay, now when we take about 1877, okay, please remember this date 1877 because we will be repeating the famine of 1877 again in the next part of this chapter. Now in 1877, mostly in Deccan area, Madras, Mysore, Bombay, South India and other parts of southwestern India, there was famine. Okay, now when we speak about 1878, there was another famine in central India and in Punjab area. People died. Now, you might be thinking why we are blaming or why is it led to the growth of nationalism. When we speak about these famines, they were not natural famine. they were human-made famines. Mostly the grains which the farmers produced, it was all taken by the British. So the farmers did not get their food supply. People died of hunger. Okay, now let's go to the another factor, that is impact of British. Even though we call British for doing some lots of bad things, they did also good things to India. Okay, these are the positive impact which we had of British on India. Okay, the first is the influence of Western education. If you can hold this video, please go to extended textbook if you have, and please read about Macaulay's Minute on Indian education. You will understand which policy they started in India. Okay. Now, when I speak about Western education was introduced in English language in India, what Indians learned was the world history. Indians learned about the French Revolution. Indians learned about the American War of Independence. They learned the concept of liberty, fraternity, and equality. Along with that, they also learned the British history. Okay, when we speak about British history, Indians learned how British killed Charles I because he was not ruling properly. He was creating problem for the parliament. Okay, they also read about how James II was overthrown. Okay, it was done by the people to their own king. Indians also started to think that way. They could also do the same thing with their British overlords or their own rulers, the princely states which they had. The same way, what happened over here is that English became lingua franca. Lingua franca is the language which is used in the market by the common people. Okay, even if you take the modern day Goa, if you go to market, mostly we use Konkani or we use Hindi. Okay, that is the lingua franca which we have in the markets. Okay, same way English became lingua franca. People either from north, south, east, west of Indian subcontinent, they could speak in one common language, that is English. And when they had one common language, they could communicate how their culture was not diverse but had the same source. And they also found one common enemy, that is English. Okay, same way administrative and economic unification of the country. Okay, this was somewhat the British did not expect, you can say. Okay, when they came to India, they did not see India as divided part. They saw it as British India. So British administered India, whole India, all those kingdoms which they had acquired as one country, that is India. And Indians also thought that way later on. Okay, so economically, India and administratively, India was all one unit. Okay, same way. In last chapter, 1857, we have spoken that how the Indians did not like transport system. They did not like to sitting a person from higher class sitting with lower class. Okay, but later on they learned to adjust, and it became a boon for the Indian nationalism. Indians, after they could travel from any corner of India, either from north to south, east to west, any corner, without any limits. So this led to the interaction, this led to the change of ideologies, which led to the rise of nationalism. Same way, we have another factor, is socio-religious factor. Okay, if you can hold, go to its standard textbook, go to chapter number 10, you will learn about all the socio-religious reform movements. Okay, not all are covered over here. There are few which have been mentioned in your textbook, 10 standard textbook, which will be covering up over here. So we have Rajaram Mohan Roy, the father of modern India, and his Brahmo Samaj, how he tried to change Indian people. Okay, especially how he tried to focus on caste system of India. Same way we have Dayanand Saraswati. He also did the same thing. He wanted to change the religious thinking of India. Okay, then we have Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Okay, he was a Muslim and he established one educational college institute in India, which was known as Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College. which was established in Aligarh, okay, which is presently known as Aligarh Muslim University. It was established by Sir Ahmad Khan, okay, which gave the modern style of education to the Muslims. Same way we have Swami Vivekananda, who did lots of things for change of Indian society. And he also tried to revive the Indian culture, telling the people how India was rich in their past. Same way we have Jyotiba Phule, which is he came from what we call modern day Maharashtra or Bombay Presidency during the British era. Okay. Jyotiba Phule mostly focused with the help of his Satya Shodhak Samaj. He tried to help to uplift the what we call suppressed class in this group, and he also established the educational system especially for girls, which was not there during that time. Then we have other factors. Other factors is the rise of middle class. But before we go to middle class, let us try to talk about point number 2, racial pride of rulers and policy of discrimination. When we talk about British coming to India, okay, they came up with the ideologies of liberty, equality and fraternity. Okay, but when it comes about using them or with the Indians, it wasn't there. They never treated Indians as equal. When you talk about many clubs, many theatres, Indians were banned of entering. Only the Europeans, especially British, could enter. Okay, when you speak about judgment, judiciary system, okay, Europeans for doing anything wrong, okay, they were not judged by the Indians. Okay, they were just judged by the Europeans. Okay, when it comes to even promotion, a person, Indian or European, okay, Indian with same qualification as European and even the experience, the promotion was given to the Europeans first. Okay, Indians were not given much promotion. Okay, so this was not liked by the Indians. Okay, when we speak about rise of middle class, it is somewhat linked to same thing, the new businessmen, new intellectuals, which were educated with Western style of education. They realized that British were not treating them properly. Even the economic policy of British were not good for Indians. So they tried to convince the mass, the people, that please say that British are not doing good, we must fight against that. The same way we have rise of literature in India, especially when we speak about newspaper. The Indian newspaper arose, okay, like the Hindu, the Advocate, the Maratha. Okay, so there are many more examples given in the textbook. This market there. Okay, this newspaper spoke about how British policies were bad for India. They also spoke about how Indians should change themselves. Okay, same way we have literature, we have lots of writers, but famous writers among them which has been given on the text are Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, okay, and we have Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, Mr. Chattopadhyay's book Anand Math was one of the famous books during that time. Same way, if you can follow the 8th standard textbook, you will also find Ghare Baire, which was written by Rabindranath Tagore. They told about the contemporary world, India. Okay. Now, same way, we have Europeans as well as Indians. They started to learn about Indian history, especially the ancient history. They started to tell that when Europe was still living in haphazardous way, Indians had Vedas, Indians had philosophies, Indians had political system, they had kingdoms, empires. Okay, work like Max Muller, work by James Prinsep, even Indian legends like Justice Ranade. Okay, many of them came forward and they wrote how in ancient time, even in medieval era, how India was glorious as compared to Europe. Okay, let's go to the next part, repressive policies. Okay, when speaking about repressive policies, we will be speaking about two Governor Generals of India, Lord Beaton and Lord Ripon. Okay, let us focus on about Lord Lytton. We have already three policies of Lord Lytton which we have learned in 8th standard. I will repeat it again. But let's start with this first point. When Lord Lytton became the Governor General of India, he came up with abolition of import duty. So any goods which are coming from Europe, mostly from England, they did not have to pay any duty. So their goods became more cheaper and they had more market in India. Same way, what happened is that ICS exams, what we have in modern day India, we have IAS exams. Modern day we have IAS service, which is Indian Administrative Service, but during British time we had something called as Indian Civil Service. Now when speak about Indian Civil Service, the exams of Indian Civil Service were held in London. Okay, Indians found it very difficult to go in London and answer it. Okay, but somehow Indians used to manage to answer that. But what Lord Lytton did was he decreased the age of examination. Okay, anyone before it was 21 years, now it was made as 19 years. Anyone above 19 of age were not allowed to answer this ICS exams. Okay, so it became very difficult for the Indians to learn the Western education, then go back to London, give the ICS exams. So Indians did not like it. Same way, what happened in 1877? Okay, I would like to go back to the famines of 1877. Try to remember which area where people were dying because of famines in 1877. During that time, what happened in England is that Queen Victoria became the next new queen of England. Okay, and that ceremony was also held in India. This ceremony was called as Delhi Darbar, where lots of money was spent. There was pompous processions which took place. Okay, but during that time in 1877, South India, the Deccan part of India, people were dying of hunger, where Lord Lytton did not pay attention. The same way, what happened in 1878 is that Britain had gone to war against Afghans. This was the second Anglo-Afghan war, where British fought and they spent a lot of money which was coming from India. Now, Indian paper, especially the local language paper or vernacular paper, started to write against what was going on in England, how the English was spending their money in Afghanistan. Okay, to suppress that, Lord Lytton came up with vernacular press act, where Indian local language newspaper writings were all stopped, all banned. The same way we have in the same year Arms Act of 1878. 1878 Arms Act suggested that Indians, whoever has to carry any arm, they need to have the license. Whereas for the European counterparts, there was no such thing. They could just buy any arm, they could just roam around. So Indians felt that okay, all these policies of Lord Lytton are not good for them. Okay, they were a bit angry. Okay, now after Lord Lytton, we have Lord Ripon. Okay, Lord Ripon, during that time there was one positive change which was supposed to take place. Okay, after the advice of Sir Percy Gilbert, okay, who was the law member of Lord Ripon's executive committee, okay, they had suggested a bill. As per this bill, the Indian judges, highly qualified though, they were allowed to judge any Europeans for wrongdoings. Okay, now the Europeans, especially the British, did not like that. They said that no Indians will judge me. Okay, only the European judges are allowed to judge us. Okay, so there were lots of trouble which took place, and Gilbert Bill, which was on the side of Indians, was taken back. Okay, and Indians did not like it. They felt that okay, they have been cheated, and they felt that okay, we must form one organization which will take our grievances against the British. Okay, now this led to the foundation of Indian National Congress. Now, before I go, I want you to hold and before not turning without turning the pages of your textbook, please write the year. in which Indian National Congress was formed. And second, I want you to write the name of the British ICS officer who helped the foundation of Indian National Congress. Let's go ahead. Now, when we speak about Indian National Congress, Indian National Congress was not first association organization from India which was talking to the British. Okay, there were many. I have divided them zone-wise. Okay, let us speak about Bengal's area, Bengal Presidency. When we speak about Bengal Presidency, in 1838 we had Landholders Society, where they had any complaint from the landholders from Bengal Presidency, which is modern day, you can say Bangladesh, Bengal, Odisha, and even Bihar, which includes Jharkhand. Okay, they all were getting together if they had any problem against British. Okay, in 1843, for common people, Bengal British Indian Association was formed. Okay, they did the same thing like landholders group. Okay, but for the common people. Now, what happened is that both this group felt that okay, they must combine, and they combined together to form another group called as British India Association of Bengal in 1851. But this was mostly limited to Bengal area. Same way in 1875, okay, Surendranath Banerjee and his associates formed one Indian League, okay, and they worked very hard towards taking any grievances and complaints that the common people had to the British. Okay, now the thing is that when we speak about this, it was mostly towards Bengal, but this was slowly becoming a national movement. Okay, in 1876, this Indian League got merged with a new group called as Indian Association, which was also formed by Surendranath Banerjee and his allies. What they did was, mostly Surendranath Banerjee used to tour throughout India, telling the problems of Indians which they faced under British. Okay, same way, Dadabhai already formed one association called as the East India Association in London. Okay, any complaints from India in England was taken to the British Parliament by Dadabhai Naoroji. Okay, same way in Bombay we have Bombay Association of 1852, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, which was formed by Justice Ranade. Okay, they were local. Same way Madras Native Association of 1852. Okay, in Madras Presidency. Okay, now let us go to how this Indian National Congress was formed. Now in 1883, okay, there was one conference held, one association formed called as All India National Conference, which was somewhat, you can say, a higher level of what we had, the Indian Association of 1876. Okay, these two, the All India National Conference of 1883 was founded by Surendranath Banerjee. Okay, and they were taking complaints, suggestions of Indians to the British. Now, there was another union formed by A.O. Hume, Alan Octavian Hume. Okay, he was the retired ICS officer. He felt that okay, Indians should come together, form an association and take their complaints if they have any suggestions to the British. And he was also encouraged by the British government. They felt that okay, if Indians come together, okay, and if they write down what are their complaints, okay, they can. It will be easy for the British to make the changes or do the administration properly. Okay, and in 1884 they found Indian National Union in 1884. Okay, now in 1885, Indian National Congress, we'll go to the last part. Now what happened is that in 1884, after this Indian National Union was formed, okay, this union was supposed to have one meeting at Pune, okay, in December 1885. But because of plague, this meeting was held in Bombay or modern-day Mumbai on 25th till 31st of December 1885. Okay, during this meeting, okay, the presidency was held by W.C. Banerjee. okay, Byomkesh Banerjee. During this meeting, Dadabhai Naoroji suggested that this group, this Indian National Union, should be renamed and it should be formed as Indian National Congress. And thus the Indian National Congress, a group was formed which would lead us in future along with other groups to what we call as the freedom struggle of India. Okay, let us try to understand when this Indian National Congress was formed, what were their aims. Okay, this is there on the textbook last page. I just read it for you. Okay, now the major thing which they aimed was promotion of close relation between nationalistic workers and from different parts of the country. So they wanted to bring all people with nationalistic ideologies together. Okay, second, develop and consolidate a feeling of national unity irrespective of caste, religion and province. Okay, so they wanted to boost the ideology of nationalism. Same way, formulation of popular demands and their presentation before the government. So all the demands collect together, take it to the British, and lastly what we have is training and organization of public opinion in the country. Okay, so train the people to try to encourage what we call the ideology of nationalism. Okay, so with this I will end this session, I will end this chapter. I want you to read the textbook chapter number 2, and I hope everyone has solved the answers, so the questions of this chapter when I had declared it. Okay, thank you.